Since I've started doing this roadbook rally stuff, I've discovered that having the GoPro on my helmet has actually been a pretty good training tool, because I can see some of the stuff that I do, some of the mistakes that I make consistently. So I figured I'd put together another little video, just a little bit as a journal of what I'm doing, what I see myself doing, so I can go back and look at it. It's not super common to be able to go practice road books. I only get to do it a couple times a year, if that. So this is like me taking notes for myself. This was the first time that I'd used really a real like ICO road book holder setup. In the past, I'd been using these Bluetooth buttons in an iPad to try to see how much I was going to do, see if I liked it, kind of thing. The iPad works pretty well, actually, way better than I thought it would, but I have a really hard time seeing the screen, especially in direct sunlight or when it gets dusty. I wear glasses, so looking through a layer of glasses, a layer of goggles, that's 2 layers of dust, plus the iPad is just too much. So I finally ponied up, bought a F2R. This is the RB750 Type B roadbook holder, and got an actual ICO as well. I do still have, and you'll see it a little bit later in the video, I do still have an iPhone running the Rally Blitz app on it. That serves as kind of a backup for the ICO, so it's also got my cap heading, it's also got trip odometers on it, as well as serving as a speedometer, so for speed zones, or if I'm just on pavement for liaison sections, I know how fast I'm going. The bike doesn't have a speedometer on it. So, a little bit of learning curve with a bunch of new gear. I was having some issues with the roadbook unrolling itself. Especially the first half of the roadbook, where the top spool is small diameter, the bottom spool is large diameter. I'd bump the button and it would skip up as I hit bumps, multiple instructions at a time. So you'll hear me talk to myself, and every once in a while you will see me reach up and tighten up the roadbook. Eventually I got into the habit, and this is something I need to remember to do, got into the habit of tightening it up, every instruction, every other instruction. It was not a problem after that. Here you see me make the mistake that I make all too often. Every time it costs just a little bit. I knew that at 3325 there was going to be a road off to the right, and I was still riding, just cruising at 33.2 and just not paying attention, rode right past the road right as I was starting to look for it. So here you can see me make another mistake. So I make the left turn. There was an angle right in that instruction. You can see in the instruction where I made the right turn, but then there is a small mark where you can see the road coming in from the left, and then I am supposed to bend to the right. And I messed that up really bad, and this was something that I did a few times before I figured it out, where there's multiple things that I have to do in an instruction. I did the first thing, I didn't do the second thing, and it took me a second to figure it out. And then, because I rode around in circles a little bit, my odometer was actually correct when I jumped back on, even though I jumped on the single track just slightly too early. I was actually supposed to jump on the section after that, so it all worked out. I kind of got lucky, but definitely after this I realized that I needed to highlight on the road book when there was a multiple instruction on the two-lip, or multiple instructions in one instruction. The nice thing was there were 2 instructions in a row, so I immediately said, okay, I've clicked off the next one, I'm right, and then you saw me reach forward and I tightened up the road book. One of the things that's different with the ICO compared to what I'd been doing with the digital setup is the iPhone and the iPad setup have hundreds of kilometers on them. And the ICO can do that, But I was told by some people there, hey, just try it in tenths. You're always going to be off by a little bit anyway, and get used to it. So my brain, you'll hear me talk to myself in terms of hundredths, and it got me confused quite a bit trying to do the rounding in my head, because I would say something like, okay, at 70 I need to turn left or something, and that would mean like at 3270. Well, it's really 0.7, and it was hard for me to ride and remember that, and eventually I did switch over and fix that in my head, but it wasn't until the day after this. Definitely prefer riding in tenths as opposed to riding in hundredths now. There's quite a bit of work that I did to the bike between this roadbook practice and some of the previous ones. The suspension on the bike is quite a bit different. Conflict Motorsports helps me out with the suspension stuff. They do a great job. Finally had a chance to have them do the suspension on this rather than just on my 950. And it turned out awesome. I had 4 CS forks on it the last time I'd ridden it, and it was beating me to death. So you can see there I've crossed over, and then you hear me say 4203 and then the gate. And that's what I was talking about, where my brain is still working in hundredths. The ICO is in tenths, so I look at it and I look at 42.3 instead of 4203. That was the kind of mistake I was making. So I didn't make it here. This one I was right on. I got it in my head that it was going to be basically 42.0, and it worked out. You never know quite what you're going to get on a roadbook. You can see this tunnel is barely tall enough for my bike to get through. That ICO is probably an inch from the top of that pipe, and I'm actually holding my breath so that I can pull the chest protector in enough to tuck in like this. You hear me gasp after I get out. So yeah, holding your breath to get through a pipe on a bike, if you're claustrophobic, man, that'd be a challenge. 59.26, 60.79. So again, you heard me say 60.79. I should have just said 60.8. So what I'm coming up to here, you'll see me look down a bunch and you'll catch that little iPhone screen on the bottom. I'm looking for a waypoint. The waypoint's popped up on the iPhone. The iPhone's way out of my line of sight.
Got it. 64.7.
So I'm looking down, trying to see the thing, because once you check that waypoint off, it pops up a little check mark. Okay, you got it. If you ride past it, you don't get a check mark, then it never records that you actually got that waypoint. So I have missed a few waypoints in the past because I saw it pop up, saw the arrow pop up, rode through it, and didn't realize that I never got the check mark validation. A real rally computer will beep at you, so that's a super nice feature of that positive reinforcement. You have to look down, beep, you've got your waypoint, go. That iPhone doesn't do that.
Wow.
So here, now that I've popped out of this creek, there's an HP section, and I've marked it, I've seen it coming. I historically struggle a little bit with HP sections, so I'm being very careful. I know that this is a great chance to practice it, so it's totally up to me to figure out where I am. So I'm watching the ICO, I'm trying not to hit one of these bushes and crash. I was also trying to use the iPhone's compass and it turns out that I wasn't going fast enough, and the compass was not accurate. The compass was telling me to go a certain direction, so I'm looking for like 270-degree cap heading. And I hit it. I'm thinking, okay, I'm supposed to get to 66-ish. You can see that the road book, or 65, what is it there? Okay, so 66.7 is my next point, right? I'm supposed to pick up a road. And I'm looking at this cap heading thinking, the cap heading doesn't look right. I didn't turn far enough to go from 270 to 211.
Why is that saying that?
And then you see me flip the ICO's compass on. The ICO's compass, I'm still going at 270 or 300-degree cap heading. I'm going the wrong way.
God, this thing is
So the tracks that were in the grass there were probably from just other people out riding who didn't want to be in the wash. They rode along the ridge. Well, I had the wrong cap heading, so I was just in the wrong spot. Gotta be really, really careful with that iPhone compass. So then you heard me say 211 is my cap heading. 211 is that hill. So now I can just look at where I'm riding. I've got something in the distance, at least as far as I can see. And I can just aim at that and ride. That way I don't have to look down, look up, look down, look up. And ideally what I would do there is just flip back to my compass, or my odometer. Well, now I'm past the hill, so what I should have done here is pick a new heading point off in the distance. I didn't do that. And this is part of my problem with HP, is I look down at the compass all the time. I slow down. Slower you go, less accurate the compass is. Now it worked out okay here. That ICO has a pretty darn good compass in it. But for future reference, I really need to pick something way off in the distance. And that's why it's always good to take the high line. You can see a lot further. So there you can see, okay, I've picked up the road. I've looked at the next instruction.
Here it is.
I know there's a fence there. I see the fence in the distance. I've confirmed where I'm going. I've completed the HB. With some mistakes, but it was, I learned a lot even from just that one section.
Whoa. That was incredibly misleading.
So that's just a couple of the notes from that rally training. Hope it helps somebody else. I'll certainly go back and revisit it before the next time I do a road book. Always good to remember stuff, and always something new to learn.